Yo, what's up? Derek Parker, DP. We've got another NBA mock draft headed your way. I titled this one too early. Again, I mean, we're still a number of months from it, but I feel like we have enough information from the last one we did just in terms of how NBA teams are doing now, how prospects are doing. So we're going to give an update. I feel like the bottom part of the NBA standings has kind of started to solidify, at least close enough to where we can get more accurate than when like the Heat, Sixers, and Bucks were all down there. And then prospects have also started really coming into their own too. I mean, we've seen a number of guys kind of start to step their game up as we get into maybe the 8th, 9th, 10th game opposed to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So yeah, I'm excited to do another mock. I think we're deep enough now that I can say that I'm really excited for this class. So here it is, our too early 2.0 mock draft. We're going to kick off the video with one of our more ambitious picks, Rutgers guard Dylan Harper at number 1 to the New Orleans Pelicans. I want to start with the fact that I'm still very much a believer in Cooper Flagg. I personally still think he's firmly the class's number 1 prospect, and I myself would draft him to all 30 teams in a heartbeat. But I want to use this to highlight the fact that I don't think it's out of the question that Harper can have a good enough season to vault to the top spot. He's averaging 23 points, 4 and 4 on 51% shooting. He looks the part of a high volume rim finisher, and perhaps most importantly, it seems like he might just have that superstar gene. All it'll take is one team to fall in love with his skill set, and that's doubly so for a team like New Orleans, who already has talented forwards and hasn't had a blue chip guard prospect like this in some time. All this to say, watch out for Dylan Harper. In tandem with that, Flagg falls to the Charlotte Hornets here at number 2, who get the absolute perfect player to slot in next to LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. At 6'9" and just 17 years old, Flagg's been incredibly impressive in his first handful of games for the Blue Devils. The scoring has come in moderately simple ways, but his counting stats are great, and his defense as a whole, along with the previously marketed feel for the game, are sharp. Again, to this point, he'd remain my number 1 prospect, even with a little less efficiency across the board. I think he's anchored a young but very solid Duke team in a short time there. With the Hornets, I think he'd finally be the piece to push this team over the rebuilding edge and into the NBA's competitive stratosphere as a connective forward. At number 3, we have the Utah Jazz taking a home run swing on another Rutgers prospect in Ace Bailey, hoping to capitalize on his sky-high ceiling. Bailey's had an interesting first few games. The length, athleticism, and long talked about shot making have all been mightily impressive, but the rougher handle and questionable decision making and shot selection have maybe been worse than some imagine. Even still, his numbers with the Scarlet Knights stand at nearly 18 points on 45% shooting, most of which comes in dazzling pull-up jumpers and high-flying dunks that are going to draw the attention of NBA decision makers. The Jazz don't quite have clear-cut direction just yet. They've nabbed a hodgepodge of interesting prospects in their last few drafts, none of which have come on necessarily strong, and have even been rumored to be going after some win-now talent on the trade market. In Bailey, the team would finally have an S-tier prospect to pour into and focus on for the foreseeable future. 4th overall, we have the Toronto Raptors, a team I'm pretty excited about being near the top of the draft again, taking Texas sharpshooter Trey Johnson. I understand this class has a ton of studs and we're still very early in the season, but it feels like Trey Johnson has ever so slightly flown under the radar as a freshman averaging over 20 points per game on 48, 44, 84 splits. His scoring package is as professional as it gets, and if he can keep up this high-level scoring output through SEC play, he'll be a shoo-in in the top 5 to me. This is an interesting pick for Toronto, but one that I like given I think they could really benefit from a potential number 1 scoring option. I think they've shown to value this archetype in taking Jacoby Walter last season, and this would essentially be the supercharged version that could carry a massive offensive load alongside Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, and more. At number 5, we have the Washington Wizards taking a player with probably the hottest draft stock on the planet right now, Illinois guard Kasparas Jakushonis. At 6'6", there were already high expectations for the 5-star do-it-all guard, and he's even blown those out of the water through a handful of games, more recently going on a streak of 20-plus point performances. The Wizards front office really seems to value positional length so far in their rebuild, and getting a large guard here that can run the point, but moonlight as a scoring guard with nice 3-point shooting would be perfect for the lineup they've crafted so far. If Jakushonis can continue to thrive the way he has in late November and early December, he'll go a whole lot higher than number 5 on draft night. At number 6, we have the Philadelphia 76ers, who most, including myself, don't really expect to continue to occupy this spot, but here we have them selecting Baylor hybrid VJ Edgecombe, who's seen a really interesting start to his college career. At around 6'5"-ish, Edgecombe doesn't necessarily identify as a guard or forward, more so just an impactful all-around player. And while his pure scoring numbers don't look great through the early season, averages of 5.5 rebounds, 3 assists, and just shy of 4 stocks per game at his size are incredibly intriguing. Should the Sixers actually stay in the top 10, with Edgecombe they get an offensive project, but a seemingly playable defensive rookie who can fill in some gaps positionally and really guard on the perimeter, which they lack a little bit right now, and it also adds an infusion of high athleticism. At 7, we have the Portland Trail Blazers taking a shot on jumbo guard Igor Demin, who despite seeing a few down games in the last week still has a pretty great body of work through 8 games. He can score inside, knock down jumpers, shoot threes with precision and touch, and is averaging nearly 6 assists to 2.4 turnovers and handling the rock a good bit at 6'9". The Trailblazers have a pretty interesting guard unit with Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and Anthony Simons. Picking Demin here covers the players they already have with some length and shooting, as well as adds a potential high-ceiling point guard or point forward to the mix. It's a nice middle ground pick between disregarding the current talent and also not drafting purely for fit. At number 8, we have another interesting and pretty ambitious pick in Chicago taking a shot on French guard Nolan Traore. There's a few reasons this will be unpopular. Traore has most simply not had a good season so far for St. Quentin. His splits are abysmal, he's averaging just under 3 turnovers per game, and despite his pedigree and reputation, it seems he's falling pretty quickly on draft radars. That being said, I can't shake believing in his skill to some degree, especially once we get into these late lottery picks where it's a little bit of a toss-up anyways. At the moment, I still kind of buy Traore as a handler, potential scorer, good passer, and potentially improving shooter down the line, but I, like everyone else, will need to see some improvement this season. This would be a massive swing for Chicago. At this point, it doesn't necessarily seem like Josh Giddey is working out there. They have other talented guards, but this would be a young guard prospect they could pair with forward Modest Bazelis as they look towards a future with a lot of their current players on different rosters. At number 9, we have the Indiana Pacers drafting Maryland's Derek Queen. For my money, probably the most interesting prospect in this entire class, but someone who I think has really earned some top 10 buzz. Queen is a 6'10 freshman center who's been able to thrive so far with a ton of craft and skill, rather than pure size or athleticism, which is atypical for bigs. He scored 17.5 points per game with nice rebounding, he's the best big man passer in this class, and has averaged over 2 stocks per game. It's hard to tell exactly what he'll be at the next level, but that type of pure production as a freshman is hard to ignore. I've drafted him to Indiana, who does need a little bit of help in their big man rotation. Maybe Queen plays the small ball 5, maybe he moonlights as a bucket-getting 4 alongside Miles Turner, who can hit threes, or maybe he's your run-and-gun center of the future with a still developing three-point shot. There's limitless possibilities with a player like Queen, especially for a franchise who dealt with Domantas Sabonis for a number of years, and I'm excited to keep watching this Maryland center develop. Easy pick here for Detroit at number 10. They'll gamble on Illinois forward Will Riley, who by all accounts is a perfect fit in this Pistons core should he pan out. At 6'8", Riley got off to a blazing collegiate start, but has since cooled down in his last handful of games. Even still, his scoring averages look good, over 40% from 3 on over 5 attempts per game, and even more importantly, he passes the eye test in every sense as a producing scoring forward. He's got the positional size and needed stroke to succeed in this Pistons core that could really stand to add more shooting around Cunningham, Ivy, and more, and he adds a little more in the ways of passing, rebounding, and a little bit of defense than you might expect for a perimeter forward of this caliber. At 11, we have the Kings taking a shot on a different center archetype than they've employed in the last half decade, Duke center Kaman Malawach. At 7'1", despite not having necessarily eye-popping stats so far, I'd say Malawach has been as advertised for the Blue Devils. He scored 8 points, grabbed 4.7 boards, and dished nearly a block per game in just under 18 minutes, shooting a great 79% from the floor. I think he could stand to earn more minutes and stay on the floor more in general, but I've liked what I've seen as far as project bigs go. By the nature of how they play, the Kings rank pretty low in rim protection stats, and while Malawach wouldn't be some starting 5 for them in the short term with how impactful Sabonis is, he could at least offer a drastically different look for the team in spot and bench minutes, and maybe evolve into a player that could create some versatile lineups down the line. Regardless, I think Malawach is going to be a worthy late lottery shot for plenty of teams, given how successful his archetype has been in recent years. At number 12, we have the much improved San Antonio Spurs taking probably an unpopular shot on a big, but one that I like in Georgia's Asa Newell. A 5-star freshman, Newell's been a surprise, to me especially, averaging 16 points, 6 rebounds, and over 1 block and steal per game for the Bulldogs. He's been a very solid interior finisher with size and touch, has rebounded well, played great defense all over the court, and continued to shoot threes despite not seeing them go in just yet. At 6'11", I think there's a future where Newell can be a jumbo NBA 4, scoring on the interior, crashing the glass, playing nice help defense, and hitting easy spot-up shots, which would be a scary prospect next to Victor Wembanyama. I think it'll be advantageous for the Spurs to match Wemby with some interesting big men down the line, and there's certainly worse shots than Newell at 12. At number 13, we have the Houston Rockets drafting via the Suns' first-round pick and taking a shot on a point guard prospect in 5-star freshman Boogie Fland of Arkansas. Fland's been pivotal to Arkansas at the guard spot so far this year, earning heavy minutes with decent volume scoring, great passing, nice rebounding for his size at 6'2", and really stingy on and off-ball defense. The Rockets already have a few young guards that they're currently developing in Amen Thompson and Reed Shepherd, but Fland offers the prototypical point guard, whereas the other two offer some interesting wrinkles and whatnot. I don't want to outright say Fland would be any sort of long-term Fred VanVleet replacement, but I can somewhat see the vision as a stingy defender, nice passer, and a guy who can knock down shots and get to the line in crucial moments. Rounding out the lottery, we have the Utah Jazz again, this time taking our first returnee of the video, South Carolina's Colin Murray-Boyles. CMB has remained impressive in year 2, adding 6 points and nearly doubling his rebound output while continuing to thrive on defense. And he's even showed the ability to hit some threes, massive for his game. The Jazz have taken shot after shot on high-ceiling prospects lately. With their second lottery pick of the video, I like taking a player who I'm pretty confident will have a long future as a role player in the NBA.